We are now, I think we have been for a while, living in a corporatocracy where your speech is censored, where impure thoughts and impure ideas are de facto banned. I've recently uploaded a lot of podcast content to YouTube, and it's striking and banning this content for ludicrous reasons. Episode 47, Islam is right about gays. This episode is discussing... I'm making no comment about any groups here. I'm saying what other groups say about other groups. Yet, my content is being removed from YouTube, and I actually got a strike. What this means is... Now, if there were 20 YouTubes and they all had different policies, it's fine. But this is there's one YouTube, there's one place for video online that just dominates. There's a very small number of places online for podcast content. What this means is we have 1, 2, 3, much like China, 1, 2, 3 companies that control almost everything you can see and think and discuss online. This is a corporatocracy. We're already in 1984 now. A handful of unelected people, unaccountable people you can't really complain to, who make arbitrary decisions about what content is allowed, are controlling everything you see online, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no recourse. We don't know what's driving them. We don't know what their agenda is, although we can guess it's probably quite a far left agenda. Involved in open borders, fuck whites, fuck men, things like that. These people are controlling all information now. This is the wet dream of Kim Jong-un, not being even able to discuss slightly controversial ideas without getting the content removed. Other things that were struck or were removed from Facebook. Podcast I did, number 92, female-only events are open sexism. They are. Events that are just for women, which is far more common than events that are just for men, it's just open sexism. This podcast will probably be removed as well. How does just discussing that point, how does that breach their rules? How is that hate speech? Just simply stating that single gender events are sexist, which by definition they are. This is just logic. We're not even allowed to say logic now. The people controlling your lives, controlling what you're allowed to think, what you're allowed to consume, even very reasonably exploring ideas, as I do on this podcast, even this is verboten. The people you didn't elect, who control everything you see and listen to, are stopping you listening to what you want to listen to. There's a huge gap in the market now for genuine free speech outlets. And I think this is what's going to end YouTube. YouTube will probably become something much more like Netflix. Because they've been losing a lot of money for a long time, and they're focusing on monetization now. So YouTube as the place where everyone uploads whatever they want, I think that's going away. It's going to be more family friendly, mass market content, but that leaves a massive gap in the market. We have BitChute, but it's. I mean, they've done great work, but it's kind of slow and fragmented, and it's not YouTube too, is it? There's in the future there's a huge market for a consolidated free speech platform or multiple free speech platforms where it's easy to subscribe to the content. It could be video, it could be audio. I think ThinkSpot, Jordan Peterson's new website, they're kind of in this space a bit, but there's a much smaller number of contributors there. But YouTube is over as a free speech platform. YouTube's never really been a free speech platform, and it certainly isn't now. If these were episodes where I was ranting in crazy ways, that's one thing. Episode 77's been removed. Men are stronger than women, Hollywood. Hate to break it to you. Almost all men are stronger than all women, based on scientific fact. Yet this isn't reflected in movies. Apparently that's hate speech. This is the problem with the term hate speech. It's a meaningless term. What is hate speech? Hate speech is speech we don't like, which lets us delete your content or stop people hearing you. Hate speech is whatever we define as stuff we want to stop people hearing. So we just gag you. We just remove you from the internet. We unperson you. You're gone. Why? Well, we don't like it. Doesn't fit our leftist ideology. And this would be just as bad if there were extreme right-wing people in charge of YouTube. But because it's Silicon Valley, there's extreme left-wing people in charge there. This is completely unjustified. Completely unjustified. They are 100% wrong, and they need to be held to account. YouTube is censoring the public square. Sure, they're a private company, but they're a monopoly. They have a monopoly on free speech and video content. This is the equivalent of going into the public square, hundreds of years ago, going to Hyde Park Corner, and just bungling whoever's speaking there into a car, never to be seen again. This is what they're doing. They're stopping, in a democracy, they're stopping free speech. When you're a monopoly, the government, the law, should force you to allow anything legal on your platform. That should be mandated if you're a monopoly. YouTube is a monopoly. This legislation must come down soon, because this is a serious threat to the immune system of the West. Because if we can't question the myriad of ridiculous ideas swirling around out there, and there's a lot now, mostly coming from the West, the left in the West. If we can't start questioning those ideas, they take root, and they are taking root. And as soon as we begin questioning them, the censors at YouTube, the censorship police, the Chinese government, effectively equivalent, the dictatorship in YouTube. I mean, YouTube is as democratic as the Chinese government or North Korea. They're a dictatorship. They're a de facto dictatorship that decides what you, as a free citizen of a free country, can listen to. This is consenting adults. It's got nothing to do with YouTube. They should not be doing this. Hate speech is a bullshit term. Either something is legal or it's not. And there should be no laws on hate speech. One of the cornerstones of free speech is you might not like all of it. Tough shit. We have to have free speech so we can explore ideas, win the argument. Shutting such milquetoast stuff as this down, deleting them from YouTube, this is how a civilized, open society fails. Arbitrarily making up words like hate speech, then arbitrarily shutting people down, stopping them having discussions about reasonable subjects, and even if they're not reasonable, but this is eminently reasonable, stopping them having discussions about reasonable subjects. This is how a civilized, open society turns into China, turns into North Korea. This is how you get a house full of cameras that the authoritarian thought police are watching you on all day. This is 1984. We're a long way down the road to 1984, and YouTube is just flagging themselves up here as being part of that problem. Now, they have money concerns now. YouTube has just hemorrhaged money, apparently, ever since Google bought it and before. So I think what YouTube is going to fail. YouTube is not the solution we need. We need free speech solutions where the thought police aren't going to be telling us what we can think, what we can discuss, what's sanctioned. It's not even the government. That would be bad enough if the government was stopping us doing this. In some ways worse, in some ways not as bad. This is a private, unaccountable corporation who has de facto monopoly on video content in most countries, arbitrarily deciding based on extreme left-wing politics what you're allowed to hear. WikiWiki, whatever her name is, the CEO of YouTube, she's come into your room where you're watching content. She said, sorry, no, you don't want to watch this. No, it's bad. You can't handle it. It's bad for you. Who knows if we let you watch this? Who knows what will happen? No. Here's some cat videos. Why do you watch those instead? Much safer. Don't make yourself think. Don't trouble yourself. That's hate speech. What's hate speech? Any speech we don't like, or we think you're not ready to hear. This is similar to what happened with James Damore. This is YouTube saying, we know this stuff's true. We know everything James Damore said was true about the Google memo, but we don't think the public is ready to hear it. We don't think the public is capable of hearing it without doing things we think are bad. Therefore, we're going to ban it. We're going to fire James Damore. This is the bigotry of low expectations that YouTube has, that Google has, that big tech has, that all these far leftists have. Bigotry of low expectations. Rather than discussing the truth, we're going to bury the truth because we think the public can't handle it. That's forbidden truth. Moronic. This makes the situation worse. This continues the pursuit of unscientific, untrue, incorrect trajectories like wokeism, like intersectionality, like extreme left ideology. Fuck whites, fuck men. It shuts down the immune response that we need to correct that. So we keep going on these incorrect, unscientific, immoral trajectories. And the correction doesn't happen, and it gets worse and worse. We're going to need a correction here against these bad ideas. They need correcting. But there are evil, pernicious forces like YouTube, like Google, etc., working against this correction. I'm sure there's lots of good people at Google and YouTube who know this but are too scared to speak up. Because as soon as you speak up, you get James Damore. Something must be done. I think one option here is that a large number of people all speak up at the same time at these companies. You can't fire everyone, especially not if you're an important developer, etc., because it's hard to find good developers. If everyone speaks up at the same time, there needs to be underground movements who come together, coordinate, and say, no, there should be a free speech platform. You have de facto control over the message. There should be a free speech platform. If this happens, they're going to have to come into line. But it's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. It's the best thing to do for Western society. If you think what someone's saying is wrong, win the argument. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe you should change what you think. Expose yourself to the arguments. No one on the IDW side is trying to shut anyone down. We just want to have debates with people. We want to win the argument, and we think we have the best argument. YouTube makes up a made-up word. Hate speech doesn't mean anything. That's a bullshit word. It's a tool. The phrase hate speech is a tool used to control people. But not even that. If someone made a podcast just spouting off loads of racist words or something like that for no reason, I still think that should be allowed. But this is in one category. What I do on my podcast is I make reasoned arguments, sometimes a bit controversially, but reasoned arguments based on facts and logic. Facts and logic are facts and logic, that they are the most important things. If you define that as hate speech, tough shit. Because hate speech is a meaningless term. But even then, things I've discussed in these podcasts are just based on logic, facts, reason, science. And you're defining reality as hate speech. If you're defining things that are true, reality, as hate speech, again, you've clearly got faulty reasoning. If you're pissed off with reality, things that are objectively true, it's a sign you have faulty reasoning. You need to course correct. YouTube needs a huge course correction. Whether that will happen, we don't know. People in YouTube need to stand up, coordinate, and say, no, look, there's good ideas on both sides here. We need to have a discussion. We cannot shut down one. We can't keep shutting down one side of the argument every time. This leads to a bad outcome for the world. YouTube has a monopoly on free speech. It controls the public square. We can't have the public square monopolized by one side. That's called China. That's totalitarian. That is not democracy. We live in a democracy. Hopefully legislation won't be required, but it probably will be. But we also need the hedge, which is free speech platforms. They're starting to emerge. YouTube might just become the glorified Disney Channel at some point, who knows? But these trends are very worrying. That they're deeply undemocratic and deeply wrong. Regardless of which side of any of these debates you're on, it doesn't matter. I would say the same thing about legal content coming from the far left or the far right to some extent, as long as it's legal. And I would prefer it to be constructive, but that's not really the point. That's not how free speech works. You don't get to decide which free speech you like and stop other free speech. That circumvents the point of free speech. For YouTube to remove such factually true and milquetoast content as this, it's a sign of that society is failing. It's a sign that we are living in a corporatocracy. It's a sign that YouTube is a big part of that problem, and we need a huge course correction. This is 1984. We're on the road to 1984. This is only going to get worse. So how do we fix this? As I say, coordination by members of staff, because I don't think people at the top are likely to do anything about this. They all seem to be extremists and on one side of the argument. But even if you're an extremist on one side of the argument, you must understand why free speech is important. Surely you must understand that. And I think YouTube do understand this to some extent. They didn't remove Crowder from their platform, for example. That could have been a business decision, because they would have lost a lot of conservative viewers. They would potentially have aided other platforms starting up. I think the problem is, once you invite the wokeists, the diversity, shakedown companies into your organization, once they get in there like a cancer, you're fucked. They're going to grow, and they're going to try and control everything you do. And if you push back, they'll call you a racist or homophobic, whatever. This is the problem all big tech has now, because they all weakly invited the wokeists, the intersectionalists, the diversity shakedown industry. They were invited them in, and now they're there. It's going to be impossible to get rid of them. These could be the seeds that destroy all of these companies by taking their eye off profitability and moving it to extreme politics. It's not good for business. So there's a lot of problems here. This is a very dangerous road one. We're on the road to mass censorship. We have mass censorship of content already. YouTube's doing it based on weak, unscientific, inconsistent rules that we constantly see. That there are, as I say, because Crowder wasn't banned, there are seeds of positivity there, but it's like YouTube and Google feel very conflicted on this point. It would have been much easier for them and much better for society if they'd just gone down a free speech road. Just go back to the law, go back to free speech, and then let people win the argument. YouTube has to trust people to comprehend the argument and choose the correct side. Yes, this is why the US Constitution has free speech as the First Amendment. We have to trust people. Good arguments should always win. As soon as you veer off that course, it's so open to corruption. Even if you think you're not corrupt, even if you think you're doing the right thing, which YouTube may well do, how do you know you're doing it? Often you don't know if you're doing the wrong thing. Often you don't know. You can't see if you're on the wrong course. This is why free speech is so important. It exposes you to all of the arguments. Sure, there are downsides to it sometimes. If Alex Jones was making loads of shit up and spreading it, some people will believe that. That's just part of the downside. That's part of the mix. That's just something you have to accept. It's still the best course. Free speech is still the best course, even though it has problems. There's so many problems here. We need to do everything we can to try and fix it. New platforms are required. If you work at big tech, coordinate, and let's try and get them moving back towards free speech.
The Deviant Developer Podcast. Tap subscribe in any podcast app to never miss an episode. Please leave a review on iTunes and like on YouTube. It's essential to spread the word. To contact me or make a welcome donation, go to thedeviantdeveloper.com. Your support is greatly appreciated.